As I record this video, the NHL has just announced that the 2019-2020 season has officially concluded. And with that, Leon Draisaitl has officially been crowned the Art Ross winner, as he put up an astounding 110 points in 71 games and is the first German in history to take home an Art Ross trophy. And with that, he is a bona fide superstar, but it wasn't always this way for Draisaitl. In fact, when he entered the league in 2014, many people were calling him yet another Edmonton Oilers bust. And in my last video, I discussed the severe mismanagement of Leon and how the Oilers played him in a bottom six role when it was very clear he should have been in the minors. And keep in mind, this Edmonton Oilers team was at the bottom of the standings, and they even went to the extent of denying him on going to the World Juniors, where he would have been captain of Team Germany. And to add salt to the wounds, they ended up sending Draisaitl back down to the WHL anyways in the middle of the World Juniors. Just mind-blowing. But luckily, this rocky start would not hurt Leon too much, as again, today he's a bona fide stud. But this scenario got me to thinking, what other teams have butchered the development of a potential star due to poor management? And well, it turns out there is a lot. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of variables that come into play with the development of a prospect, but some general managers and coaches have made shocking decisions. In today's video, we're going to go over 5 teams who seriously mismanaged a potential star. And we're going to take a deep dive into the exact events that transpired. So comment down below if your team has ever mishandled a prospect, and press subscribe for some more awesome content. Let's get straight into this video. We will start with the current ongoing mess of development, which is Jesse Puljujarvi. Because after being drafted 4th overall in 2016, Puljujarvi had some massive expectations, as he's being compared to Ilya Kovalchuk and Jamie Benn, which is some massive praise, and to be honest, it was well deserved. Because during Puljujarvi's time in Finland, he displayed all the signs of a potential superstar in the NHL. To start, he was a 6'4" winger who could skate like the wind, and he had elite offensive instincts, with the production to match, as Puljujarvi would put up a very impressive 28 points in 50 games, alongside going nearly a point per game in the playoffs. And this production alone is enough to get you some very high praise, but that wasn't all, because Puljujarvi alongside of Patrick Laine and Sebastian Aho would have one of the most dominating World Juniors in history, as he amassed 17 points in 7 games and won the gold medal in a dominating fashion. So heading into the next year, Puljujarvi would actually make the opening night roster. And through 28 games, he'd score 1 goal and have 8 points. And it was very obvious that he just wasn't ready for the NHL, because the best way I can describe Puljujarvi was just raw. He had all the potential in the world, but he was an extremely raw talent that needed more polishing. And at least one more season in Liga, or at least a mainstay role in the HL, could have really prepared Puljujarvi for stardom. Because when Jesse wasn't that instant success in Edmonton, he was put in a bottom 6 role with no support from his line mates. On top of being an 18-year-old potential franchise winger who was healthy scratched 12 times in his rookie season. In the next season, it was the same thing. Puljujarvi had made some progress, but he just wasn't ready. And on top of his confidence being stripped away and not having complimentary line mates, Puljujarvi just had no chance. And today, Jesse Puljujarvi is back in Finland, and he is coming back into form as an elite goal scorer as he's sitting around point per game in Liga, but he is still far from the NHL. But what do you guys think? Does Puljujarvi still have first line upside in the NHL? Let me know. Next, we have Gilbert Brule. Drafted at number 6 by the Blue Jackets in 2005, Brule was a special talent, as he was a gifted forward who had an amazing offensive toolset as he put up 87 points in 70 games. But what made Brule even more special is that he stood 5'10" and played a very physical game, as he also amassed 169 penalty minutes in his draft year. So kind of think Brad Marchand, smaller framed, very gifted, but gritty. And after a very impressive training camp in preseason, Brule would make the opening night roster. And this move would receive its fair share of criticism, as Brule was only around 170 pounds, and so many thought that he needed at least 1 more season of development to be ready. And honestly, it was pretty clear, because he was taking a lot of abuse right away, especially with his playing style, and in Brule's 3rd game in the NHL, he would fracture his sternum, resulting in him missing 17 games. And so after returning to the lineup where he'd scored his first goal, after 4 more games, Brule would break his leg, resulting in him missing a significant portion of the season, and then was finally sent down to the WHL. And so finally, after another year of development, Brule would once again make the Jackets' opening night roster. However, Brule would play on the 3rd and 4th line with little to no chance of succeeding. And honestly, it seemed like a whirlwind of mind games from Gallant, because some games Brule would get benched for almost the entire game, and the next game he'd play 15 minutes. It just made no sense. And so the next season, Ken Hitchcock would replace Gallant, but nothing changed. And for a high-end prospect turning 19 years old, being buried on the 3rd and 4th line after suffering a series of injuries, this was a massive problem for his development, as Brule would just continue to lose minutes and get buried in the lineup with no support. So finally, Brule would be traded to the Oilers for Raffi Torres. But after 3 years of horrible mismanagement and a loss of confidence, it was almost too late. Not to mention, in 2009, Edmonton was also a last place team, so Brule wasn't in the best environment. And after battling injuries, Brule would never hit his potential, which is honestly a shame considering he never really had a chance his entire career. Next, we have Nino Niederreiter, and I briefly covered this story in the past, but this one is just mind-blowing. Because after being drafted 5th overall in 2010, Nino was a massive draft riser, as he basically went from unranked to a top 5 pick. And coming from Switzerland, Nino was highly skilled and had a great offensive toolset. Hands, playmaking ability, and great vision. And the next season after being drafted, Nino would actually make opening night roster. But the Islanders would make a very smart decision by sending him down after 9 games, where he continued to develop extremely well with the Winterhawks. So finally, in 2012, the Islanders felt that it was time for Nino to be injected into the lineup. And so they did, as Nino was a 19-year-old potential star who was placed on the 3rd and 4th line, playing with Marty Reisner and Jay Pandolfo, who, keep in mind, had a combined 9 points this season. And Nino would put up 1 goal, 0 assists, and 55 games. And so just to go over this logic, Nino was a potential offensive dynamo playing with 2 4th-line grinders and was given next to no responsibility. And because of this gong show, Nino would be instantly traded to the Minnesota Wild for Cal Clutterbuck. And Nino would flourish into a respectable top 6 forward with 57 points in 2017, which I mean is a far stretch from 1 goal in 55 games. But Nino's time with the Islanders nearly ended his career before it even started. Next, we have Mikael Grigorenko. Drafted 12th overall in 2012, Grigorenko heading into his draft year was highly regarded as another Russian superstar. Because playing in the U18s for Team Russia as a 16-year-old, Mikael would put up an astounding 18 points in 7 games, which in return would seriously put him on the map as he was drawing serious comparisons to Alex Ovechkin and Evgeny Malkin. And so he was highly regarded to be a top 3 prospect in this draft class, and many thought that he'd actually challenge for the 1st overall pick. And in his draft year, Mikael would decide to come to North America as he joined the Quebec Ramparts to gain more exposure. And Grigorenko would transition extremely well, with 40 goals, 85 points in 59 games. However, he didn't quite meet his high expectations, as he didn't have the greatest playoffs, and some scouts actually questioned his motivation. So he fell from a top 2 pick to number 12, where many thought that the Sabres had the steal of the draft. And in 2013, during the lockout season, Grigorenko would have a monster season in the Q as he put up 30 goals in 33 games, which would earn him a spot on the opening night roster. And it was very clear that he just wasn't ready, on top of routinely playing around 5 minutes per game on the 3rd and 4th line. And he was even having shifts with John freaking Scott. I love you, John Scott, but not the greatest development tool. And so Grigorenko was a highly skilled 18-year-old sitting on the bench, getting healthy scratched almost half the season. But the main issue here is that because the Buffalo Sabres didn't send him down in the 5-game grace period, and the fact that the Quebec Ramparts had too many imports on their team, the Sabres literally had to keep him on the roster. And this trend would continue the next 3 years, where he lost his confidence and then would finally leave to Colorado. And today, Grigorenko is back in Russia, where he's actually been a stud in the KHL, so at least there is some upside here. And lastly, we will end with Brett Lindros, who is of course the brother to the infamous Eric Lindros. Drafted 9th overall in 1994, Lindros had the same game and playing style as Eric. Not to the same pedigree, but the potential was there, as he had massive potential to be a premier goal-scoring winger. And so after lighting up the OHL with 24 goals, 47 points in 26 games, Brett would be injected into the lineup. And Brett would have a pretty dismal impact offensively, but he would dominate in the physical department, racking up 100 penalty minutes in only 33 games as a 19-year-old. However, Lindros would suffer a season-ending concussion and wouldn't be ready to play until the next year. And after starting his second season in the NHL, Brett would sustain another concussion. And during this time, there wasn't a concussion protocol in place, and the Islanders would not take him out of the lineup. And well, Brett would sustain his third concussion, which would end his entire hockey career at the age of 20. Now with this, I wouldn't say that the Islanders severely mishandled Lindros, but given the importance of the concussion protocol and the type of game Brett played, and just the standards we have today and what we know, this mismanagement literally ended his career. But anyways guys, there we have it. Those are 5 teams who severely mismanaged a young star. So comment down below if your team has ever mismanaged a young star. I would love to hear. Being an Edmonton Oilers fan, you know, this is all too familiar. So again, let me know. And we are on the road for 20,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe button for some more awesome hockey content. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope everyone's doing well. See you guys later. Hockey's back. Next, we have a caseless iPhone. Well, good thing Red Zone Cases just released their Star Series 2.0. Besser, Petey, Horvat on one case? Are you kidding me? Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid. Get one of these beautiful cases today and use code RTH at checkout to receive 20% off your order. The link is in the description below.